You've built an incredible career using storytelling to elevate brands. What makes storytelling such a powerful tool for businesses today, and why do you think so many companies still struggle to use it effectively?
There's an incredible power there, and that when it's used correctly, you can create stories that can build.
I kept mine to myself and my close circle of friends, and they were always encouraging me, you got to tell your story. You got to tell your story. It's going to change somebody's life. You got to tell it. And then I finally did, and I did it on stage, and it was amazing how many people came forward and said, "Why, my God, I needed to hear that. Thank you. You've given me hope." So
what is a story, and what's the difference between a mission and a story? And so we look at, and when I say impact storytelling, I'm saying like we are focusing on
how can brands ensure their impact storytelling is genuine and not just another marketing tactic?
If we just talk about trying to convert people this idea of, and as the internet open up the opportunity to storytell, we could start thinking about, well, we can tell 2-minute stories or 4-minute stories. We can actually, it's been a tough time, particularly for filmmakers over the last few years, because the whole distribution model.
The rise of AI, you got social media shifts, you got evolving consumer expectations. Where do you see impact storytelling heading in the next 5 to 10 years, and how should brands prepare to stay ahead?
Well, AI is a great tool if you use it the right way, and I think that it can only make our storytelling.
Welcome to another episode of Boardside Leadership Talks. I'm your host, Martin Rowinski, and today we're diving into the power of storytelling, purpose-driven branding, and leadership in today's business world with an exceptional guest that I actually had the pleasure of meeting recently, Richard Yelland. Richard is the founder and chief creative officer of Curtis Birch Inc., where he specializes in impact of storytelling that transforms brands into movements. His work has shaped major campaigns for Nike, Toyota, Surfrider, Numi Tea, and many more small companies that you probably never heard of, using narrative-driven strategies to connect brands with their audiences on a deeper level. As a filmmaker, Emmy-nominated director, and creative strategist, Richard has told stories that inspire action, from environmental activism to inclusivity in sports. He's also the creative force behind the Loop process, a strategy that helps brands discover and amplify their most compelling narrative. And with 2024 being the year of impact-driven branding, we're going to explore how businesses can authentically share their mission and turn their brand stories into global movements. Richard, if you can't tell, I'm a little excited because I love this topic. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Martin. I appreciate it. I'm gonna have to get a copy of that. I love that you're thinking about what I do. And yeah, it's an exciting year for purpose-driven storytelling, brand initiatives, because people are looking to align their values with mission-driven stories, with mission-driven brands. They want to make a difference. They're feeling the need for hope. They're looking for solutions. So what I say, the old story was doom and gloom. The new story is doom and gloom.
Awesome. I love it. No, I'm passionate about branding. I'm passionate about storytelling. I have a story of my own, just like everybody else. No one's special. Everybody has a story, and
Yes.
and where their passion comes from, or where they build their resilience. And, I kept mine to myself and my close circle of friends, and they were always encouraging me, you got to tell your story. You got to tell your story. It's going to change somebody's life. You got to tell it. And then I finally did, and I did it on stage, and it was amazing how many people came forward and said, "Why, my God, I needed to hear that. Thank you. You've given me hope." So I'm super excited about this. And we're going to kick it off with the power of storytelling in branding. So you've built an incredible career using storytelling to elevate brands. What makes storytelling such a powerful tool for businesses today, and why do you think so many companies still struggle to use it effectively?
I think that's a great point, in that there's an incredible power there. and that when it's used correctly, you can create stories that can build audiences and engage people and activate people over years. And on the other hand, if you struggle to tell your story, if you don't know what a story is, you're missing huge opportunities. And as things become more mission driven, as brands more and more need a purpose, I mean, the consumers are asking, 79 to 81% of consumers are looking to make their brand choices based on their values. So those brands seeking purpose or built on purpose, there's one thing is having your purpose and your mission, and the other thing is how to develop story off that. So I think you're right. There's a big opportunity. I think a lot of brands struggle with it. Even the leaders in mission-driven branding, mission-driven products, and mission-driven business models. The companies I featured in my film, Seeding Change: The Power of Conscious Commerce, which you can check out on seedingchangefilm.com. These are brands that invented the triple bottom line business model 20 years ago, which is brands that prioritize people, planet, and profit. But even these brands, because their missions are so deep, they have such purpose built in, and there's science there, that it's very complicated for them to tell stories. So, when I go and I talk to impact CEO groups like the Real Leaders Group, which we're part of, which is an amazing group of purpose-driven leaders, or I'm talking to students at University of San Diego or Georgetown or Presidio Graduate School, I ask them what a story is, and you'd be surprised to find out how few people really can answer that question in a short sentence. And it starts with a beginning, middle, and an end, and then we can go deeper from there. But essentially, what is a story, and what's the difference between a mission and a story? And so we look at both things. Obviously, coming from big advertising background, I started in advertising at Madison Avenue with J. Walter Thompson, working on big brands like Procter and Gamble, Kodak, you name it, Red Cross, Partnership for Drug-Free America. We worked on like international briefs, right, with like a whole department of strategists and media planners and account executives, and obviously with really smart clients and all the resources available to us. We developed off of briefs, right? We had a brief, a very specific brief, and often it was based on data. And then we developed creative off of that. So I think similarly with my company, Curtis Birch, we look at the brand's mission as sort of the starting point for the creative strategy. And then we're developing concept and story off of that. And when I say impact storytelling, I'm saying like we are focusing on the reason why, the mission behind the brand, right? And the difference, the point of difference, the reason why consumers might want to rally behind your brand, right? And believe in it and tell their friends about it and continue to follow it. So that's the starting point. And then, of course, there's the whole process that I've developed called Loop, LOUPE, which is our storytelling process. And it's a 3-step kind of method for developing story off a mission.
Yeah. And everybody, so many people love Nike.
Yeah.
And I'll mention Nike here in a minute.
Yeah.
And there's a reason, obviously. But when you hear their story, I'm not a big Nike wearer, and don't get me wrong, great shoes, I think, but they just don't fit well. I'm European, so maybe I'm more of an Adidas guy, which is what I'm wearing right now. Yeah. But bottom line is you hear their story and it's like, oh, I'm going to go buy a pair of Nikes. Just it's such an incredible story. But so it does have such a huge impact. And you've had an opportunity to work with major brands like Nike, which is why I'm talking about them, but also like Toyota, to create these narratives that resonate far beyond traditional marketing, because it does. It's way beyond traditional marketing. What are the key elements that transform a company's mission into an actual movement that truly engages people?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And I think that really it's one that, it starts with like drilling into the mission, right? I mean, when we work with Nike, one of their missions is opening the playground. So they just say like, we want to open the playground to everyone. We want everyone to be invited. So I worked on a Black History Month initiative with Nike. And so, just this idea of inclusivity and, their obviously overarching strategy of just do it. When you combine those things, it's really powerful. So, it starts with brands that get it. Nike really, they led the way with like brand storytelling with Just Do It, right? Because it's not just a tagline, it's not just a compelling positioning, it's an actual lifestyle. It's a mission, for your life. When you wake up in the dark and you don't feel like getting out working out, like that's exactly when you should, right?
Yep.
And that's when you want to just do it, right? And so by also really focusing on the athletes and being an athlete first brand, and then also with their design and their branding and their all elements of the story as well. So when we're developing stories with brands like Nike, we're thinking about things like look and feel, design, type choices, right? Music choices. Every single thing is so important for the very highest level execution. So first you have to have an incredible story, and then you have to execute at the highest level for it to reach that kind of amplified space, right? That where we can really make people go, wow. So, it's a combination of things coming together, and that's what we're always striving for. But it starts with an incredible story. And these days more than ever, I'm really focused on mission. And obviously over the last 10 years, we've innovated, we've pioneered this idea of impact storytelling.
Yeah.
And the more you hone in on mission and the point of difference and kind of the good we're giving back through our storytelling, I think the more engagement we see, not just the power of the creative, because the power of the creative helps us win creative awards. It helps us win over the hearts and minds of the consumers and our followers and volunteers if we're doing nonprofit work, or people to give donations. It's really that call to action. And when you have a call to action that's not built on just a product sell, like you say, at the end of the day, if Nike's selling me a pair of shoes, the branding is only going to go so far, right? But if they're selling me a pair of shoes and an actual give back component, like I'm going to give back to pulling plastic out of the ocean, or I'm going to give back when you buy that shoe to a cause that's aligned with my purpose and my values, then, it's starting to mean more. So, but if I think just gone are the days of just simply selling off of the unique selling proposition. And that's what we are brought up on Madison Avenue, is that USP, that unique selling proposition. So what I'm saying is now is like, what's your unique point of difference in terms of your impact story, right? So, I think that's really where like we hope to see, pioneering creative work that's built off mission, where we can say, look, we have a unique point of view. We have a unique story built off this unique mission for a purpose-driven brand. And we're actually creating incredible stories, and we're building the brand and sales on that idea. And that's where I think the most upside is in the world, in my point of view. Obviously we're gravitating toward mission-driven brands, right? So it's a certain type of brand that's really getting it right now, that sees that opportunity with us.
Yeah. And I think consumers today are more value driven than ever before. I mean, with about 82% making purchasing decisions based on alignment with their beliefs.
Yes.
How can brands ensure their impact storytelling is genuine and not just another marketing tactic?
That's a great choice. It's a great kind of choice of topic for a whole, I mean, because, I'm delivering a project right now, and we're talking about what do we really have to offer with regards to this sustainability initiative, right? Because if we just talk about trying to convert people this idea of, look, sustainable way is a better way, it's like, okay, we know that, right? But what are we really offering? So at the end of the day, I think, even these goals, like, the airline telling me we're going to be carbon neutral by 2050, like, I really don't care. Right now, it's like, what are you doing right now? Like, what kind of difference are you making? And how am I going to align with my values with yours? Like, I want to be making a difference now. I want that plastic out of the ocean. I want cleaner air. I want more trees in the forest. and I think these are universal values. So what are you doing right now? Let's talk about transparency. So if you're not doing much, but if you're doing a little bit, let's talk about that and where you can do better. But let's not do pie in the sky or think that people care about sustainability for sustainability's sake. Like, let's drill down and get to the brass tacks. So we've done projects with Bumblebee Seafood, and they have a real checkered past with regards to some of their environmental and social justice issues. Over the last 10 years, they've founded nonprofits and they've helped fish populations rebound, and they've started to really monitor workforce in certain countries where it's really difficult to protect against slave labor. So it's tricky working on impact initiatives with brands like that. We look at, okay, what are you really doing? Let's focus on those specific initiatives. So we focused on kelp reforestation that they were doing, which was a
Nice.
legitimate effort. And they, for the future of seafood, they need to be doing things like this. They need to be seeing those population of tuna rebound in the Indian Ocean. So they're working on this, right? So these are things we can tell a story around. And at the same time, we shouldn't say like, oh, we're saving the world. We're saying, look, we have issues with the planet. We've got problems with population of fish in certain areas. We're doing this to try to solve it. And so that's how I think we go about the dialogue. And by companies too, like taking ownership and saying, look, we're doing this, join us, help us do this with us. I think that's a great call to action. And that to me is a lot better than be like, hey, fly with us. We're going to be carbon neutral in 2050. Like, I want to know what you're doing. So like, if you're actually with my ticket, X% of my ticket is going to offset the carbon from my flight, then I feel like, okay, I'm putting my dollars there on this airline and on this plane ticket. And I have a tangible impact with my purchase. So I'm thinking of, kind of like my film, again, Seeding Change, The Power of Conscious Commerce. When you watch it, you'll see that we're trying to educate consumers to vote with their dollars. So every purchase you make, you can make an impact. So I'm looking I want to put my dollars on those brands that are making an impact. So I want to know Numi Tea, when I buy their package, that package is actually all sugarcane. And I want to know that when I make that purchase of Numi Tea against my other, name tea brand, you could probably name one or two or three off the top of your head. They don't have a plastic free package. They don't have fair trade. They're not treating their farmers with a fair wage, right? So that's what Numi Tea is doing. So when I put my money there, when I'm at the store and I know, okay, I can put my dollars here and I'm going to be, probably paying the CEO more dollars for their yearly bonus, or I can put my money here and that extra is going to go to the farmers. It's going to go to initiatives like sugarcane wrappers around, the tea bags. And that's like, I'm voting with my dollars there, and again, I'm looking at Numi though and saying, Numi, you got to do a better job of telling us at the point of purchase that if I put my dollar there, it's going to go to a good place. And 50% or so more say, hey, I want to spend more if I can make an impact with my dollar.
Yeah.
So I think
absolutely.
that's a good opportunity for the whole world of purpose-driven brands.
Awesome. So let's talk about your journey as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
You've directed Emmy-nominated films.
Yeah.
Webby-winning documentaries,
Yeah.
and I can never pronounce it, CANNES Film Festival honoree.
Cannes Film Festival, yeah.
So has your background in filmmaking influenced your approach to brand storytelling, and what lessons from filmmaking apply to business leadership?
It's a great question again, and I started in 30-second commercials, so again, like doing the best work in commercials in big agencies. We started in print and advertising and integrated campaigns, and that was film school. In that we were hiring some top directors in Hollywood, and we were watching how they did it, right? And these 30-second commercials had really strong narratives, and they had really tight storyboards, and we saw how, working with directors that had major feature films in Hollywood, right? The way that they developed storyboards and how much story they could put into each frame. That's learning to tell a story in such a short medium really is a great training ground. And while I was a writer in advertising, I started directing commercials. So when I started my company 20 years ago, we just brought that approach to all of our projects. Like, we're going to really try to bring the best we can in a full service approach in terms of creative, storyboarding, execution in terms of directorial. And then as we expanded into the realm of impact and mission driven work, we were doing, for example, 30-second PSAs for a foundation called Life Rolls On. And that was a really unique foundation. And we're really drawn to it because it was changing the world for people in wheelchairs. It was enabling those with spinal cord injuries to go surfing. And we helped them start a program called They Will Surf Again. And that work was all about, and back 20 years ago, people in wheelchairs were seen as people that were, you might want to stay away from them, right? They may be sick. They were really like not people that were celebrated. They were looked at as people definitely with disabilities. And I think what we were able to do by putting a spotlight on people with spinal cord injuries that wanted to get on a surfboard or wanted to get, on a pair of skis, it was like, wow, these people have this incredible passion. They have this mission. We're going to help them do it. And so we were lucky enough to be part of this group of surfers and activists who help people with spinal cord injuries get on surfboards. And the founder of the Life Rolls On Foundation is a well-known quadriplegic surfer. He became celebrated as an adaptive surfer, and he won Nike's Casey Martin Award for Athlete of the Year several years ago for his work on a surfboard and showing other people, hey, if you have a disability, you can get on a surfboard, you can still live your dreams. So we put together these groups of volunteers to take people with spinal cord injuries on surfboards. It became a program called They Will Surf Again. We had an Emmy-nominated series of public service announcements that were awarded at the National Public Service Emmys. And then that started the documentary work. So that was the beginning of it all, where we were starting to see, okay, these are narratives that aren't just 30-second stories. These are the opportunity to tell stories that have longer format narratives. And as the internet opened up the opportunity to storytell, we could start thinking about, well, we can tell 2-minute stories or 4-minute stories. We can actually develop a 22-minute documentary. And when it's mission driven too, like it was for Life Rolls On, with a nonprofit at the center, we created my first documentary was Floating the Nathan Goki story. Around that work, we followed a quadriplegic who had a dream to surf. He had broke his neck surfing, and he had this dream. He saw Jesse Billauer doing this, and like I said, the founder of Life Rolls On, and he's like, I can do this. I can get back on a surfboard, even though I'm a quadriplegic. And so we followed his story for 2 years as he pursued this dream from intensive care all the way through rehab into him getting back in the ocean again. And so that was a 30-minute film. It went to the film festival circuit. It won an award at the Cannes Film Festival, and it was licensed for broadcast, and then it went on to iTunes and Amazon and things like that. And I think that was really where, and this was 2010 or so, really like, okay, the sky's the limit. If we're doing mission-driven storytelling, whether there's a brand or nonprofit or it's a piece of entertainment, like there's a market for this. And so, when I think about how are we going to do compelling work for brands, it's like, let's find the story that's actually a really compelling story that's marketable, that can actually earn media, you don't have to buy, when the story is really good, you don't have to buy a spot. You don't have to buy media behind it. People will pay tickets to watch it. So, that's the
Yeah.
difference. And I think the opportunity again for purpose-driven entertainment, the sky's the limit.
That's awesome. Well, before I get into that last question, which is about future, I got one quick question. At what age did you know or did you decide you're going to be a filmmaker?
That's actually, it's been a long process. The idea that I am a filmmaker really just came over the several years of making films where you're like, okay, I'm making something. Because everyone that you're really like, it's a passion project. It takes
Yeah.
really a deep conviction to finish films, let alone start them. So when you get into the act of filmmaking and you finish, you're like, okay, well, I'm a maker, And what also happened too is that I was a director in commercials, and we were working with big crews and 35 millimeter cameras. And with those kind of operations, we had a director of photography. He had a crew. We had a crew to support the crew, and like every move took a team of people, and that was just the way it was back in the day. And nowadays, often it's me and a DP with two camera packages flying to a location, and then maybe getting some support crew there. So by the end of the project, I always joke, but it's actually quite real. It's like as budgets get thinner, it's like you're responsible for more and more duties. So you're running sound sometimes, and like often I could be the last cinematographer on the project. So the role director is way different than the role filmmaker. So I'm proud to say I'm a filmmaker, but it took several years of learning, and you have to just do it. I tell students, they're film students, I'm like, you just have to go out and do it. And the more you do it, the more you learn, and the more that you become a filmmaker. And there's so many choices, and you just have to go out there. There's so many choices to be made and failures to be had, and you just have to fail fast and continue to do it. And then as you get on, years on, you really start understanding the decisions that can make or break it being good or great.
Yeah, that's what I say. Fail fast, learn quicker, and do it again.
Yeah. It's been a tough time, particularly for filmmakers over the last few years, because the whole distribution model has shifted, right? Because a lot of the traditional distributors have collapsed. So we're entering a new age of film marketing, where it's going to be really reliant on new models and directors taking it upon themselves. So I feel like as hard as it is to make a film these days, it's even harder to market it and get it out. So, I mean, it's thank goodness for film festivals. They really help us. I think that the film festival platform will always be there for us to get our films out, get them watched, get them awarded, get press, build a following. Social media, we build followings around our films. The stories behind the films, especially if they have a strong purpose, can really build audiences online. And then the ability to get out and promote pop-up screenings. So with our last film, Birth of the Endless Summer, we had a really nice run of theaters and pop-up screenings where we saw the ability, because the traditional distribution that we would have gone to really wasn't there. So we decided to prolong our we went from film festival screenings into theater screenings, and then from there we went to PBS. So now Birth of the Endless Summer is on public broadcasting. So that's really cool. And then that gives us the ability to look at our options. How are we going to move the film to digital in the new age of distribution? TV.
Yeah.
We can talk about that next time.
Yeah. And speaking of the future, so with the rise of AI, you got social media shifts, you got evolving consumer expectations. Where do you see impact storytelling heading in the next 5 to 10 years? And how should brands prepare to stay ahead?
Well, AI is a great tool if you use it the right way. And I think that it can only make our storytelling more powerful. I think the danger is letting it try to do things for you. So, as a writer, as someone who came up as a writer, and I worked on as a writer training AI models as well. I was put on a team to help train models how to think, and there's these different disciplines, the way humans think, and there's different spheres of thinking and ways that we analyze, like the way computers give us things back from AI. Even advanced AI, it's like they just don't have certain things that humans bring to the table. And I think that, like, being someone as a writer, I had to learn to write myself. I think that there's a real danger to try to let AI make your film or to write your story, and to think that how much quality suffers. So, but me as a writer using AI as feedback, I can say, hey, to AI model, what version of this essay do you like better? And I'll put 2 drafts in, and it'll give me feedback on each, and then I'll use it as a sounding board. Or if I'm stuck on a sentence, I'll say, hey, give me 3 more ideas. Because I think good writing is good thinking. So AI can help you brainstorm, can help you give you feedback. It can also synthesize a lot of information. So if you have a lot of material to get through, again, it's learning how to take AI, use it to your advantage. So visually as well, on the visual side, audio cleanups, like what are some of the things, and we still have to dive into that, but there's a lot of great stuff that we're going to benefit from. That's going to, our presentations, our rough cuts, our sort of animatics, and things we can speed up, certain things that are just labor for labor's sake. So looking just AI to improve as help us in ways. And then on the other hand, at the end of the day, feeling like, okay, we also have to look out for and preserve human storytelling, because that's ultimately the quality. And I feel quite confident they can't take it away from us. The computers can't, as long as we sort of stay on guard, and we are the gatekeepers of quality, right?
Absolutely. Richard, this was an awesome discussion. I know we can go on forever. You got a busy schedule, but great discussion of storytelling and how it can shape industries, connect with audiences, and drive meaningful impact. Yeah. But before we wrap up, where can our audience follow your work and learn more about Curtis Birch and all your latest projects?
Yeah, thank you very much, Martin, for taking the time out. And I really appreciate your insightful questions, because it's really your questions today were really on point. I'm really passionate about using storytelling for good. And I think that those brands looking to make the most impact, I think we all have an opportunity to align with those brands that are going to help us make change, because the brands can scale change. They can align, they can get consumers to vote with their dollars, and we can scale change faster than relying on policy, right? We can get stuck in the weeds waiting for government to make change for us. And I think there's been a lot of finger pointing lately unnecessarily. And I think, when we were in the pandemic, there was a lot of that same politicizing of things that we've had to deal with in society. And I think where you look to the opportunity, where there's solutions, like let's come together, let's tell stories to bring people together around things and products, causes that can make change for the good of the planet, for people, and the next generation. And so,
what's that?
To answer your question, I would love for people to send me a message on LinkedIn. Richard Yelland, Curtis Birch Incorporated is on LinkedIn as well. CurtisBirch, INC on LinkedIn. Also on Instagram at Curtis Birch, CurtisBirch. And also our latest film, people can follow at Birth of the Endless Summer on Instagram.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in to Boardside Leadership Talks, and stay connected for more insights from top leaders and innovators. Richard, thank you.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you for tuning in to Leadership Talks. Don't forget to subscribe for more insightful conversations with industry leaders. Your support means a lot to us.